Okay, so after last video, this is what we ended on with the Avalon Nano. Let me just turn this around. So as you can see, we've kind of taken it and put it back together. This is kind of the holding case, I guess, for the lower part. And that's what we're going to be using kind of to hold it. So after doing a bunch of tinkering as well, we have kind of come to a conclusion. And this is also based on the fan control or the temperature control. So you have this, which is the temperature control, and we're trying to mess around with that. You know, stick it down here, see how it would react. And then we just ended up unplugging it, which kind of didn't really do much. It didn't really affect the wattage or the terahash, which leads me to believe that there's obviously a fan control or a temperature control, in or embedded in the OS for the chips, and it needs to run them at a certain temperature to give out heat. That's the one thing about the OS, is that it's not open source, so we can't really see what it's running off of, which means that from kind of now on, the only way that we're going to get this to actually kind of overclock is we're going to have to trick it. So the way that we're going to have to trick it is we're going to have to add a bunch more cooling solution to it to cool down everything else. The only problem with that is that we can't do it with the actual fans in here, just because the actual fans in here are still PNW controlled, which means if we add a bunch of heat or take a bunch of heat away, these will just stop spinning. They'll have a lower RPM. So as I said in the last video, you can cut the yellow wire, but we don't really want to do that, because that means that we either have to buy a new fan if we want to put it back to the default. So today is a very, very janky solution that we're going to set up, and it's going to go based off of the heatsink that we just have lying around and this Thermalite fan that we have here.
Since 2018, CryptoMinerBros.com has been the premier site for top-tier crypto mining hardware, earning the trust of miners across the globe. The prices displayed on their site cover shipping and DDP straight to your doorstep, ensuring no unexpected costs at checkout. They deliver to over 100 countries and even provide lower invoicing options to help you cut down on customs fees. Payment is a breeze with options like direct bank transfer or cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin, USDT, or Ethereum. With over 250 ASIC options, they stock some of the channel's favorites like the bitaxe Touch, and the Avalon Nano3s. Join tens of thousands of happy customers who rely on CryptoMinerBros.com for dependable hardware fulfillment, clear pricing, and a top-notch service. Check out CryptoMinerBros.com today, link in the description.
So this is from a Nerd QX++, and this was the default fans that came with it and the heatsink. Mainly, we're probably going to take the heatsink off because that's not really going to do much. We need the fan just to be kind of in this area. And we're going to blow heat through there with the hope that these are also going to blow as well. So it's going to blow heat down, and then these are going to blow it that way. Now, reasoning behind that is probably because these are going to shut down in terms of the RPM. They're probably going to go down to maybe 300 on the RPM. And then this is going to do most of the cooling of the chip. And we can run this to 100% because we have control over it on the back end. So we're going to kind of show you how we're going to do that now. But the main control is going to come from the Nerd QX++. So we're going to plug this into that and then run it at 100% across the fins that you have here. And hopefully if you run it at 100%, then it should create kind of enough kind of cooling solution to where this kicks up the terahash to actually cool it down. So the main reasoning behind this is that it needs to stay at a certain temperature. I'm estimating this is probably around 60 to 70 degrees, and it wants to stay at that in terms of the OS in the background. So the way that we're going to try and do this is we're going to try and lower that temperature of the chip to a massive amount so that it kicks up the terahash right here. As I said, I haven't tried this before and it could be a fail of a video, but this is just me messing about. So the reason that we're using this one as well, because it's 12 volt, this is what we can run on the Node-QX. So we're going to have that running side by side and then up the fans to 100%, which you'll kind of see what we're doing now, but I'll overlay what we're doing on the computer as well whilst we're also doing this. So first thing we need to do is to grab the Node-QX++, and then we're going to put it kind of side by side here and run this fan through that as well, because we don't actually have any solution to run this fan currently off of anything, because we don't have a 12-volt system or power supply. The only thing that we have is the Node-QX. So let's go and do that. So let's get this into position right here and this back there. So first thing we need to do, we don't want the heatsink on the bottom, so we're going to have to take the fan off somehow. I think if we just unclip these, it will come out. So let's go ahead and do that. So there we go, unclipped. You have the heatsink there. Obviously, this was the standard one on the Node-QX, and if you can see there, there's another slot for a fan there, which we're going to be using today. So hopefully that works. I don't know if it's actually that intended purpose, but that's what we're using today. So we just got to plug that in, and then we'll move to the OS on the computer. So I don't know if you can see this because it's not really in frame, to be perfectly honest, but let's also get the OS up on the computer. So we can't actually do that right now because we haven't turned it on, but let's get this plugged in first. So in theory, because we have that plugged in, we can put this right by here, and it should just stay there. I know, very, very weird setup that we got going on here, but let's plug it in and see if it returns and powers on both fans. So it does not, which is really annoying. I do have another solution which we're going to try, so give me 2 seconds and we'll return with that solution. So when in doubt, obviously we're going to use a fan splitter. So just a standard fan splitter. One of them has control, one of them doesn't. So we'll unplug it from here. I didn't know that this one doesn't give you fan control, or it doesn't at least power on. So I'm going to have to take that out here. Hopefully, one thing that I've just noticed, oh never mind. I can take that out as well. Don't want to damage anything too much, so okay, cool. And then we want the PMW control to be on this one. So the main one, let's go into the Node-QX, and then the other one that is not PMW, we want going into this one that you see here. So like that. And then just plug this one back into here. And that should be all of it set up, so we can put this back to here, and let's hope that it turns on when I plug it in. That is perfect. So now we just need to get it up on the computer, start recording on the computer here, and then we need to go to settings, and we need to untick automatic fan control, and let's just start it at 80. So let's save and restart. And then we're kind of just going to have to see what it looks like on here. So that's definitely pulling air downwards. But we're either looking for a change in, sorry, this is not really an ideal setup right here for the camera. But if we move that here, ideally we're looking for either a hash rate change from the temperature or the watts going down. So the watts going down means that there's probably less power going into these fans, and that's going to drop it down, so efficiency is going to get better. It looks to be working because it kind of dropped then, but I'm assuming that the fans are going to start turning off in terms of the RPM, and that's not good either. So I don't know, I think it is also splitting the RPM, so we might need to just up it to 100 on here. We go to settings and we up it to 100, click save and then restart. So that's at 100, which the RPM is probably, we can actually read it off of here in a minute if you can kind of see that. It's not going to focus, but RPM is 2,500. So I'm assuming that this is 2,500 as well. But it doesn't look like we actually had a hash rate drop there, which leads me to believe that it's just going to drop the hash rate and try heat up the chips. This is the thing about the Avalon Nano, is obviously there's no open source about it, so we can't really tell what it's doing in the background. But it doesn't look to be changing. We've had a hash rate drop, so it was 4.93 and now it's it was 4.97 and now it's 4.93. The watts is still at 93. And people were saying that that's not the correct watts through the plug or whatever, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter too much. It's just kind of what it's displaying here. So even the watts are going up now, which is not what I expected. So at 95, it was at 93. So let's just let this run for a little bit and see if there's any change, because it looks like there's something going on here, but the node QX is just warming up, I guess. And we're actually going to stop the recording of that right there. So stop that recording. I don't think that we're seeing too much in terms of the change. The watts is still staying the same, so it doesn't look like it's providing enough heat downwards into it. We could try a different configuration where we push air, kind of pull it out. So what I would do for that mainly would be to pull air out this way and put the fan there, because then it would be pulling the hot air away. So I'm just going to hold that there and see if we have any difference. I know it's not ideal, but let's actually, well, it kind of needs to be close for it to pull air out away from it. And hopefully the hash rate should go up if you pull air out of it. But I think just in this case, we're going to need a way bigger cooling solution to even make a dent in the temperature control that we're seeing there. So maybe if we just keep holding it there, we'll see what happens kind of overall. I can still feel hot air coming out by here, but it doesn't look like anything is changing. The watts are actually going up. The hash rate is staying the same. From just what I'm seeing here, it doesn't really look like it's making too much of a difference. We could try pull air outwards, but that's just going to blow it back. So like this, I would say. I'm wondering if it's going to pull air now or kind of push it back into here. Yeah, so I can already feel it here. This is, because this is higher RPM than these ones, it's pushing air through that way. It's kind of counteracting each other. So that's going that way, and then these three are going that way. Doesn't really look like we're getting anywhere with this. So I'm just going to put it on the top again. So kind of a failed attempt at trying to trick the OS. That's the whole point in this video, is trying to trick the Avalon Nano OS to give us a higher hash rate. But it looks like it's really hard coded in there. You need a way better cooling solution. For example, like a custom heatsink with a fan or something like that. Like you have, for example, here, that might go across the chips, and then you have an actual fan on the chips as well. But what I have noticed is the efficiency is actually slightly better when you have this full open case. So even without the fan, let's just discount that in terms of the efficiency. But even with an open case, it stays at 4.97-ish at around 95 to 96 watts. And that puts us at an efficiency of 19.3, which is not necessarily expected from the medium setting. Typically you'd have an efficiency of around 20, but then if you want to go on the low mode, it's also going to be a different efficiency. I believe if you double that, it goes to high. So that still is working, and that's based off of touch. I didn't know that. But that is going to go to the higher wattage. The only thing that is also kind of bottlenecking it is the power supply. So that's at 140, and this should be only moving to probably 110, 115 to actually get the most, because you have to use that 80% rule, otherwise it's not really functioning properly. But you can already see it's up to 132 or 133 there even, and that's not really a good figure there for 130. I don't know if you can see that. I don't want to lift it up because, you know, obviously it's all not screwed down, but it does say 132 terahash is 5.27. So let's just let that run, see kind of what we get, and then we'll work out the efficiency calculation for the high mode with this fan running. I don't think this fan is actually doing anything, so we're just going to scrap that idea. But the efficiency seems to be slightly lower than what you would normally get. So let's just let that run and we'll see what we can get. After just kind of running it for about 2-3 minutes that we're looking at there, doesn't look like the hash rate is actually going up. Also, I don't know if that is a real-time hash rate or not, and it could be hashing based off of the temperature of the chip, so it feels like it needs less to actually hash more. I'm really not sure. I'm trying to get my head around how the OS functions on this, because I really can't get my head around it. It seems like cooling it would up the hash rate, but you have the fans that are controlled, so they're going to spin more to cool it down. Which means that the only way that you're really going to get kind of an accurate figure is to run your own fan setup at, you know, take all of these fans out and run your own fan speed to try and trick the OS. Which, as I said, you can cut the yellow wire, but we're not going to do that in this video. Unless, you know, somebody is going to sponsor the video for me to cut a yellow wire on the price of the Avalon Nano. So if somebody sends me $250, I'll cut the yellow wire. But apart from that, I'm not going to. So efficiency for here is 6.44, 134 on the watts, which is probably like 25 on the efficiency. But let's actually lower it down to the low mode. So we're going to switch it to low mode now, and then we're going to see the efficiency of the low mode that we're getting. So I have thought of an idea. Maybe you just kind of mess around and you keep clicking this up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down until it breaks the OS. I don't think it would ever break it, but I've had that idea. Basically just trying to mess this up to the point where it doesn't function properly, and then it would kick in, you know, a higher terahash for lower watts. But it doesn't look like it wants to do that either. It is going solely based off of the main purpose of the miner, which is the heating aspect of it. And anyone working at Avalon is saying definitely don't do this. I know it's displaying 6.44 at 58 watts there, but that is not a true figure. I had that yesterday as well, and that was an efficiency of around 12. So crazy efficiency, but I don't think that's the real-time hash rate right there. But yesterday it did display for about 30 minutes on that number, but as you can see then, it just went down to 4.26. So let's put that into a calculation. If that was the true figure, that would give us an efficiency of 14.31 joules per terahash, or watts per terahash, whichever one you want to use. But I have a feeling that that's still not the real-time hash rate, and it's going to drop a little bit more as well. But the Nerd QX seems to be functioning pretty good as well. If you see there, 5 terahash. I don't know why that's so exposed on the lighting. Maybe if we just click in there and then lower. Okay, you can kind of see it a little bit better there. But I'm kind of messing up the lighting right now. Let's just bring it up until you can kind of see it. So there, probably the sweet spot. This is still actually running at 4.26, which is great efficiency, but I'm assuming that it's going to drop. So let's leave it for a couple minutes and then let's see kind of what it ends up at. I'm assuming 3.5 is the terahash that it's going to end up at. So you can see that after you let it run, that's 3.33. That gives us an efficiency of 18.31. So not great. I believe that the chips in there can actually get down to 16, but clearly with the OS, it's just not allowing you to do anything in terms of the editing. There was some forum that I was looking at earlier, because obviously to try and hack this, I guess, that said that you could, or that Canon Avalon were coming out with some open sourcing of this sort of stuff for kind of open source purposes. That you can even see there that efficiency is, that efficiency is 15.4, and this one is around 18.31. So this is from an S21, and these are from the newest version of the Avalon actual Bitcoin miner. But still, it's not really competing with the Bitmain efficiency that you currently have. So anyway, I don't really think we've found a solution to any of that. If you guys did enjoy the video of me just kind of doing stuff to these miners, then please let me know in the comments. I don't really have much to give you in terms of information that we found out, because everything just doesn't seem to work on these, even if you pump a load of air through it. I've tried moving the fans away, that just higher the RPM on the fans. So it's clearly trying to lower the temps because they're getting too high. I just don't really know how to trick that. But if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. If anyone's ever torn one down and tried to overclock it, then please let me know. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.